I was just 18 when my world fell apart and shifted into something I never expected. My mom had died after a long battle with cancer, and with no dad around, I had nowhere else to go. That's when Claire and David Mitchell, my godparents, opened their home to me. They lived in a quiet, upper-middle-class neighborhood in Portland. Oregon clean sidewalks, rose gardens, the smell of pine in the air. Claire was kind, polite, but always busy, always a little distant, like she didn't know what to do with me. But David, he made me feel safe, warm, important. He'd check in on me, ask if I needed anything, offer to drive me to school or help with homework, even though I was already in college. "You're like a daughter to me," he'd say with a soft smile, and it meant everything at the time. I'd lost my own parents, and suddenly there was this man, this tall, quiet, steady figure who didn't just look after me, he noticed me. And I noticed him too. At first, it was innocent. He had a quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to shout. He wore tailored button-downs, smelled faintly of cedar and cologne. Good and always had this calm way of talking that made me feel ... seen. But then something changed. Slowly, quietly, like a shift in the wind. You don't notice until your skin starts to tingle. It started with little things. It's the way his eyes lingered when I came down to breakfast in a tank top and shorts. How he looked at my lips when I talked, or how he'd stand just a little too close when he handed me a coffee mug. Told myself I was imagining it. He was married, he was older, was my godfather. But late at night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop replaying the way his gaze held mine just a second too long. By the time I turned 21, the tension had wrapped itself around us like a slow, invisible fire. One night, Claire was out of town for a business trip. David suggested we watch a movie, something old and slow, the kind he liked. Poured us wine, just one glass, but I felt it hit me faster than usual. Maybe I was nervous. Maybe I was excited. Maybe both. I curled up next to him on the couch, a blanket over our legs. I could feel the warmth of his thigh against mine. At some point, I turned my head and caught him looking at me, not like a father figure, but like a man looks at a woman. My heart beat louder. Then he said it quietly, almost like he didn't mean for it to slip out. "You're not a little girl anymore, Em." I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I laughed awkwardly, trying to brush it off, but he didn't look away. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers grazing my cheek. I should have pulled back. I knew I should have, but I didn't. Something about the moment, the stillness, the electricity held me there. And in the next second, his lips were on mine, soft, gentle, almost careful. And I kissed him back. I don't even know if I wanted to or if I just needed to feel wanted by someone. Hadn't been touched in so long. Hadn't been truly seen in even longer. And this man who once told me I was like a daughter, he was now kissing me in the dim light of his living room, with his wife's sweater draped over a nearby chair. When the kiss ended, we just sat there, silent, our faces close. He didn't say anything. He just brushed his thumb across my lip and looked at me like I was something delicate and forbidden. I left for bed in a daze, my skin burning, my heart racing with confusion. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours, caught between shame and desire, guilt and something I couldn't name. I knew what we did was wrong, but it didn't feel forced. It felt real, felt like a door had opened that could never be closed again. And deep down, I knew that whatever we had started was only the beginning. Asterisk after that first kiss, everything between us changed. We didn't talk about it the next day. He acted like nothing had happened, asking me if I wanted eggs or pancakes, like it was just another Saturday morning. I tried to pretend to, tried to push it out of my mind, but the way he looked at me over the coffee cup, the way his fingers brushed mine when he handed me the plate, all said otherwise. The air between us felt thick, charged. Every glance, every touch was filled with something unsaid. I thought it was just once, that maybe it had been a mistake or a moment of weakness. But it wasn't. A few days later, it happened again. This time, it was more than a kiss. Claire was out again this time for a full weekend at a wellness retreat in Bend. David cooked dinner for just the two of us. We drank a bottle of red wine, sitting closer than usual at the table. When I got up to take my plate to the sink, he followed me, stood behind me, his hand resting on my waist. I froze. I could feel the heat of his body. He didn't say a word, just slowly turned me around and kissed me like he meant it. He needed it. We ended up in his home office, on the leather couch where he usually took Zoom calls. I don't even know how it happened so fast, but suddenly his hands were all over me, and I let him. I wanted to stop thinking. I wanted to feel desired. I wanted to believe this was real, that he was real. That night, wrapped in his arms while the rest of the house was dark and silent, he whispered, "I've never felt this close to anyone." I was drowning in emotions, shame, excitement, guilt, but also something dangerously close to love. It became our secret. He would text me during the day, short, careful messages like "miss you" or "thinking about last night." I started skipping plans with friends just to be home when Claire wasn't. I lied to her face every day. And it tore at me, but the way David looked at me made me feel like I was chosen, like I mattered in a way no one else could understand. He told me their marriage was dead, that Claire barely touched him anymore, that they hadn't slept together in over a year. "We're just roommates at this point," he'd say, holding me close in the basement, where we'd hide from the rest of the world. I told myself I wasn't the villain, that he loved me, that sometimes love didn't look how it was supposed to. But then little cracks started showing. One night, while I was in his office looking for a pen, his phone lit up with a message. I wasn't trying to snoop it, just caught my eye. The name Melissa appeared on the screen, followed by a heart emoji. I froze. My chest tightened. I wasn't ready to admit what I felt. I told myself maybe it was a coworker or someone harmless. But when I asked him about it later, he stiffened. "She's just a friend," he said too quickly, not looking me in the eyes. That was the first time I truly doubted him. I tried to shake it off, but the seed was planted. I started noticing more. He would disappear for hours on weekends, claiming errands or golf, but come back without anything in his hands, and a strange look in his eyes. I stopped feeling like his secret lover and started feeling like one of many. Still, I couldn't let go. Every time I tried to pull away, he'd pull me back in with soft words and tender kisses. "You're everything to me," he'd say, and part of me still wanted to believe it. I was addicted to the feeling he gave me, the thrill, the danger, the illusion of being loved in a world that had left me alone. But deep inside, the guilt was growing louder. Every time Claire asked if I was okay or thanked me for helping around the house, my stomach would twist. I was betraying the only woman who had taken me in, who had given me a home. But David made it so easy to forget all of that when he kissed my neck, when he said he couldn't stop thinking about me, when he told me he dreamed about us running away together. At night, I would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was what love was supposed to feel like, or if I was just another chapter in a story that would never end well. It was hard to admit, but something in me had started to break. As much as I wanted to keep pretending that what David and I had was special, deep down I felt it slipping through my fingers. The tension, the secrets, the sneaking around it, all started to feel less like passion and more like a lie I was trying to live inside. After I saw the message from Melissa, my mind spiraled. Who was she? Another woman from his past. Another girl like me. I told myself not to overthink, not to ruin what we had, but the curiosity burned through me like fire. So one afternoon when he was out running errands and Claire was in the garden, I went into his office again. His phone was locked, but his iPad was open on the desk, synced to the same account. And there they were, messages between him and Melissa. Flirty, suggestive, personal. She called him baby. He called her sweetheart. My hands shook. As I scrolled, reading about plans they had to meet in a hotel just outside the city. He told her the same things he told me, that he felt stuck, unloved, that he wanted something real. I felt sick. My heart was racing and my face was burning. But more than anything, I felt used. Like I had fallen into something that was never about love at all. When he came home that evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table, waiting. I didn't know what I was going to say. I just knew I couldn't keep this quiet anymore. T walked in, smiling, kissed the top of my head like always, and poured himself a glass of water. I stared at him, my chest tight. "Who's Melissa?" I asked quietly. He froze, the glass halfway to his lips. He didn't answer. "I read your messages," I said, louder now, the hurt bubbling up. "You said the same things to her that you said to me." He finally looked at me, but there was no panic in his eyes. Just silence. And then he said something that shattered what little hope I had left. "You knew what this was." Just like that. It's cold, flat, like I had been foolish for thinking it. Was anything more than what it really was less attention? A distraction for a man who didn't have the guts to fix his broken marriage. I couldn't breathe. I pushed away from the table and stormed upstairs, slamming the door to my room. I cried until my face hurt. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, wondering how I got here. I had lost myself in this aftercut. Myself off from my friends, lied to a woman who treated me like family, and given myself to a man who never truly saw me. I was just filling a void he had. I was just someone he could reach for when things felt boring or lonely. I thought I was different. I thought I mattered. But to him, I was just another secret. The next morning, I didn't say a word. I packed my things while Claire was out at the store. I didn't leave a note. I didn't want to explain. Just wanted to disappear. I found a small sublet near campus, a tiny one-bedroom with peeling paint and no furniture. But it felt like freedom, like air, like maybe I could finally start over. I blocked David's number, deleted every picture, every text, every memory that felt too heavy to carry. But the guilt didn't go away, stayed with me, haunting me in the quiet moments. I had betrayed Claire, hurt her without her even knowing, and for what? For a man who never intended to choose me, for a love that was never real. I tried to tell myself I'd learn from it, that I'd grow stronger, but I still looked over my shoulder sometimes, wondering if he'd come knocking. He didn't. He moved on. And slowly I started to pick up the pieces of who I used to be, even though I wasn't sure I'd ever be the same again. I wasn't. Just heartbroken. I was ashamed. But somewhere in that shame was a lesson I hadn't fully understood yet. And that truth was coming for me whether I was ready or not. It took months for me to feel like I could breathe again. The days passed slowly in that tiny apartment with its thin walls and old windows that let the cold in even when they were shut tight. I kept my head down, went to class, worked a part-time job at a bookstore, and tried not to think about the way David had made me feel both wanted and worthless in the same breath. I told myself I was healing, and maybe I was, but the guilt over Claire still sat heavy in my chest. She had called me twice since I left sweet voicemails asking if I was okay, saying she missed having me around. I couldn't bring myself to call her back. I didn't deserve her kindness. I didn't deserve her at all. Then, one Saturday morning in late spring, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in a long time, Noah. We had gone to high school together back in the days when everything felt simpler. He had always been kind, quiet, with soft brown eyes and this calm energy that made you feel safe. We bumped into each other at a farmer's market near the river. I was holding a cup of coffee. He had a tote bag full of apples. We both just stared for a moment before laughing like we were kids again. He asked how I'd been, and I told him just enough to not lie, but not reveal too much. He asked if I wanted to get lunch, and for the first time in months, I said yes, without hesitation. We started seeing each other slowly, coffee dates, walks, lazy dinners at his place while watching old movies. Noah never pushed, never pried, never tried to fix me. He just showed up. And something about that felt more real than anything I'd ever had. I told him the truth eventually about David, the affair, the shame. I waited for him to pull away, to look at me differently. But he didn't. He just sat there quietly, took my hand, and said, "We all make mistakes. It's what we do after. That matters." I cried that night not because I was sad, but because someone had finally seen the worst parts of me and hadn't turned away. One afternoon, a year after I left the Mitchell's house, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Claire. My heart raced as I opened it, my hands shaking. The letter was short but gentle. She said she had found out everything not from David, but from Melissa. Apparently, Melissa had grown tired of his lies too. She had reached out to Claire in a moment of anger, wanting her to know what kind of man he really was. Claire said she wasn't writing to blame me. She said she was hurt, yes, but also sad for me, for her, for all the ways women end up caught in the messes men create. She said she forgave me, that she hoped I was okay, that she still thought of me as family. I sat on the floor of my apartment with that letter in my lap, crying so hard I couldn't breathe. Forgiveness wasn't something I thought I deserved, but she gave it anyway. That night, I told Noah I wanted to try again, not just with him, but with life, with myself. I enrolled in a full course load for the fall, started writing again, and even took a job helping at a nonprofit that worked with young women who'd survived emotional trauma. I wasn't perfect. I still had nights where the past tugged at me, where I thought about David and the way he'd fooled me with charm and soft lies. But those thoughts no longer held power over me. I had learned something the hard way real love isn't confusing or secret or built on guilt. It's patient, it's safe, it shows up without needing to be hidden. Noah and I moved in together the following spring. We painted the kitchen yellow and hung fairy lights in the bedroom. We laughed, we argued, we grew. But most importantly, we healed not because we were perfect people, but because we were honest. I never forgot what happened with David. I never pretended it didn't shape me. But I stopped letting it define me. And that, in the end, was what set me free.